Hello, hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to read you a story from a kid's book, a monthly book that I grew up with when I was a small kid, like all of you. This book was very dear to my heart, and I used to look forward for whenever either I could buy it or I could borrow it from a friend. Used to come once a month, used to be published once a month. The book was called Chandamama, and it was published in multiple languages, English, Tamil, Hindi, and many other languages too. I mostly used to read the stories in English and Tamil as well. Today I got hold of the English version of the magazine, the book published in 1955. So many years ago, roughly about 65-70 years ago. So you can imagine how treasured those stories are, and I want to share the joy with you. Hope you will enjoy it too. I'm going to just read it from the book as it is, and if there are words that you don't understand, if I think there are words to be explained, I'll explain it at the very end, okay? So this story was published in the 1955 July version, July edition, and the story is called Who is the Thief? It starts like this. While King Prasenajit was ruling the city of Shravasti, a destitute Brahmin came to that city in search of livelihood. Fortunately for him, he found favor with rich merchants there. Besides enough of food and clothing, he accumulated a good deal of money. He converted all this money into 1,000 gold pieces and secretly buried it at a certain place in the woods. Every day he used to go to the woods and make sure no one touched his treasure. But one day the Brahmin went to the spot as usual and found to his horror that someone had made away with his hoard of gold. At once the poor Brahmin went crazy with sorrow. He ran to the city crying loudly, beating his chest and telling everyone that his gold was stolen. Seeing no one to share his sorrow, the Brahmin decided to fall into the river and end his wretched life. King Prasenajit, who was returning from a bath in the river, met him and learnt about the tragedy that befell the Brahmin. "Why do you want to kill yourself, O Brahmin?" said the king. "I am here to inquire into any theft that is committed in this kingdom. I shall restore your lost treasure or compensate you from my treasury. Now tell me whether there was any mark to indicate the spot where you buried the gold." "Yes, sir, there was a wild cucumber plant over my treasure, but now that too is gone," replied the Brahmin. "There may be many such plants in the woods. How can that be a proper mark?" said the king. "No, sir, this was the only wild cucumber plant in the entire vicinity," the Brahmin replied. "Now tell me, could anyone have known that you have hidden your gold in the woods?" asked the king. "Not a soul, nor did anyone ever follow me into the woods," the Brahmin replied. The king went to his palace and thought over the problem till he found a way to catch the man who took the gold. He called his minister and said to him, "I do not feel quite well. I should like to see some doctors. Can you please arrange to bring me every doctor in the city?" It was soon done. All the doctors assembled outside the king's private chamber. As each doctor was ushered in, the king asked him, "Who are your present patients? What medicines have you given them?" The doctors answered these questions, and the king sent them away. At last, one doctor said, "Sir, yesterday I gave the juice of a wild cucumber plant to the rich merchant Matridath." The king immediately got interested and said, "I see. Where did you get this plant?" "Sir, it is not a common plant in these parts. My servant found it in the woods after a great deal of searching," replied the doctor. "We would like your servant to present himself before us at once," the king told the doctor. Soon the doctor's servant was standing before the king. "What did you do with the gold which you found when you dug up the wild cucumber plant?" the king asked him. The doctor's servant turned pale at this question. Shivering with fear, he replied, "I kept it safe in my house, Your Majesty." "That is fine," said the king. "That gold belongs to this Brahmin. Restore it to him at once." The servant took leave, feeling as though he had been saved from the gallows. Now the minister was watching the entire proceedings without understanding a thing. He was very much impressed with the ease with which the king laid his hands on the real culprit. He wanted to know how the king could do it. The king smiled at the minister's question and said, "My job was to find out which one of the entire population of the city could have dug up that gold." According to the Brahmin, nobody knew that there was gold under the plant. So whoever thought of digging at the spot must have done so for the plant, but not for the gold. There was no such plant anywhere else in the neighborhood. So if anyone did need the plant, he had to dig only where the gold was hidden. Had anyone dug only for the gold, he would have thrown the plant away, unless the man came for the plant. Both the plant and the gold need not have disappeared. Now, who would be in a need of a wild cucumber plant except a doctor? What all I had to do was to call up all the doctors in the city and find out which of them used this plant for medicinal purposes. The minister was amazed at the powers of the deduction displayed by King Prasenajit. That's the end of the story. Hope you enjoyed it. I don't think there were any difficult words in this story. Do you? If you do, and if you did not understand, you could do two things. You could either talk to, your mom, your uncle, or anybody older and ask them for the meaning. But I really don't think there was any difficult word that you could not understand. If you still need to understand, you could ask, put your comments in the YouTube video underneath, and then I will respond to it next time I read you a story, or I can even respond it back in the comments. Hope you all enjoyed this. I want to leave you with what I thought about the story. So when you read the story, there are two things that really caught my attention. One is, when you have a problem, even though in the beginning it may sound like this is a very hard problem to solve and I cannot solve it, it's so difficult. Always there is a way. There's always a way out, and the problem always solves itself. The first thing is, when you're in trouble and you feel very sad about something, or when you're anxious about something, go ask for help. And that's what I think the Brahmin did, right? He knew that he had lost his gold, but he did a bad thing. He wanted to go and jump into the river. But the good thing that he did was he at least told everybody about his problem, and that way the king got to hear about the problem. So if you're in trouble, go ask somebody or tell somebody about it. Tell a friend or an uncle or your teacher or your mom, somebody about it. Somebody will have the solution for your problem. Somebody will have a way to get you out of trouble. So never be scared, go ask for help. The second thing that I found really interesting was, you know how the king did not directly start going. I mean, he could have gone to the woods and asked his soldiers to dig up everywhere to look for it, to see if it was somewhere else. Or he could have gone about multiple ways looking for the solution. But actually, he sat and he thought about the problem, and he really looked at what could have happened. He sat back and thought about it and found an intelligent, smart way to solve the problem in a shorter amount of time. I think it was a clever way for him to go and get all the doctors. I mean, the minute he knew it was a wild cucumber plant, that was the clue for him, right? That's how he solved it. So when you look at any problem, maybe the solution won't come to you immediately, but I think if you take a moment away and think about it and think about the details in it, there will be some way out. So those are the two things that caught my attention. Hope you enjoyed the story. I will meet you with another story next time. Enjoy.